Welcome back to the Brick and Mortar podcast by BCI, where we spotlight the most intriguing and innovative businesses in the commercial real estate space. I'm your host, Shanice. In today's episode, we're exploring a very fascinating niche in the commercial real estate world: government real estate assets. Our special guest will be Jeffrey Bornstein, a seasoned commercial realtor at KW Realty, and Duncan Chapman, a leader in the government services real estate division. Jeffrey specializes in helping government clients monetize their underperforming or unrecognized real estate assets, ensuring that they achieve the highest economic returns possible. Jeffrey and Duncan bring a wealth of knowledge to the table, so let's get started. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Hi, Jeffrey. Hi, Duncan. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Shanice. Glad to be here. And I've asked Duncan to join us because Duncan is the managing broker and the founder of KW Commercial Government Services Division. And he's a wealth of knowledge. And so we're glad to be with you.
So today we have a very interesting topic, a topic that's not very widely talked about, but it's really important. Could you first start by sharing with us how you got involved in the commercial real estate industry, particularly with a focus on government clients and monetizing underperforming assets?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for that opportunity. I had a 20-year plus corporate real estate background. And in telecommunications, I last finished up as the director of North America for Nortel Networks in 2002. And you may have heard of a guy named Roger Staubach. He had that he started in 1977, the last year after he got done playing football, called the Staubach Company.
Huge real estate company.
Huge real estate.
In retail in particular.
In retail office, his main focus was tenant representation. And I was part of the Northeast office, which was headquartered in Washington, D.C. I happen to be based in Boston. And anyway, about the second year I was there, and again, with our headquarters located in Washington, some of the guys got an idea about why don't we try to work with the government agency being right there in Washington. So they called up Roger and they said, well, Roger, we want to start working with government agencies. And he goes, I'm not sure how that would work. You guys, I'm not sure that's what I want to do. What would be some of these agencies? So they said, well, the state of Florida, the state of Texas. He goes, kind of like where this is going. Because up until that point, these type of government agencies did not have broker representation. They really, was local representation. It was a one-off situation. So that's how we got started. And in the very first 2 years, 3 years of the group, they had won 17 state agencies as the exclusive tenant representation commercial broker for those state agencies, to include, Florida, Texas, and a number of other ones. Roger sold the company in 2008 in August. If you might remember, that was about 60 days before the crash, for approximately $540 million. So as Jeffrey was saying, he did quite well in real estate and sold the 68 locations. He did not sell the retail organization. It was more just a tenant rep organization. I'm not sure if the retail is still going today, but I think it might be. But anyways, that's how I got into government services. And then when I left Staubach after he had sold it, I started doing it on more of a local basis. I joined Keller Williams Commercial about 10 years ago, and we set up a national organization with the approval of our headquarters down in Austin, and started running the government services group out of the Boston area. Today, with the help of folks like Jeffrey, we now have 36 associates around the country working out of Keller Williams offices. And we provide them expertise from headquarters and around the country. And then, Jeffrey is the associate for the area around Florida, Boca, area as our boots on the ground and our facing agent to our opportunities, our government services agencies in the area.
Yes, and for myself, I've been licensed since 2001, 23 years. I was with another firm for 13 years, and it was run by a gentleman named Robin Webb. We were owned by the Apollo Group. It was Coldwell Banker Commercial. We were the only full commercial Caldwell Banker office in the state of Florida. And we received quite a few national representation opportunities. BP Amico selling their underperforming assets and excess land assets. I personally was hired by the city of Deltona. They had some infrastructure issues. The city was not well planned for flood control, and every time there was major storms, they had quite a bit of flooding. So they hired me. I worked for the city attorney as a contractor to purchase parcels that they felt would benefit and mitigate that flooding issue. So I would buy the parcels for an anonymous owner, and they would build retention areas, and they tried to alleviate the flooding, as well as looking for a fire station location for them. I did a lot of general brokerage, land development, redevelopment of corners, contaminated gas stations turned into corner banks, taking an old tired SunTrust Bank on the corner of a shopping center that I had a client that wanted to purchase the entire center, and we offered to move the bank off the corner, build them a brand new building, pay for their land, and then brought in a preferred Walgreens developer to build a Walgreens approved site. I did single family subdivision level acquisitions and dispositions, and as well as multifamily with national builders, finding them sites and having them build 350 units that had been previously approved as condos prior to the crash. So and a lot of gas station ownership transfers from Cumberland Farms and what have you. But I joined Keller Williams Commercial beginning of this year, and I like the opportunity where there are numerous divisions. Government services being one of them, and I was attracted to the expertise that Duncan brings, and another fellow agent is Jameson Payne out of New Hampshire. The commercial real estate is a business. It's a serious business with serious investments and time involvement. And expertise is what agents bring to the table. Government services has a cadre of developers, engineers, to assess sites for higher and better use. A lot of municipalities don't have the time, expertise, in some cases, the awareness of the assets that they hold. And so, in a perfect world, I've been to Palm Beach County, which is to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'm in the process of requesting freedom of information on all the real estate owned by Palm Beach County. I also handle Broward and Martin County, and so my plan is to evaluate their real estate and discuss with them as a partner what they feel their needs are, and see if we can find opportunity to improve their asset holdings, either financially or better used. I know that Duncan has turned a former military base into an office park not Duncan, but Jameson in New Hampshire. We have an agent in Louisville that's working hand in hand with the Louisville Housing Authority, and so we also track the federal government. Every month they put out requests for lease proposals, and so if it's in it comes in as a countrywide offering, and if it's in my state, I will look at the opportunity and see if I can fill that opportunity with an owner that wants a solid tenant with guaranteed performance and a lease term of 8 to 10 years in some cases. And they lease many asset classes. They'll lease warehousing. There's an agricultural inspection or request for lease proposal out in Palmetto, Florida. And there were several office leases down in the Miami area. There's in the Doral area. So that's somewhat an overview. Duncan, anything to add?
Yeah, sure. I wanted to pick up on a few things, Jeffrey, that you were saying, and how we look to help government agencies. As you've already mentioned, Shanice, at the very beginning, one of our key charter missions is to help government agencies look at their underutilized real estate and how can we help monetize that, get some of these older properties, back on the tax rolls if they are not being utilized, and even brownfields. We have no problem in working some pretty complex projects to get those brownfields rectified, work with the state and federal environmental folks in each state to make sure they're cleaned up properly and then brought back for whatever the market needs. But when we get into a government agency, we ideally would like to have a 2 or 3 year, 5 year exclusive contract to be their commercial real estate broker consultant to help them look at these various opportunities. Municipalities, government agencies have economic development. They have community planners. They have outside counsel. They have assessors, but they don't have a broker. So how do they understand the local market value without having somebody like us to be part of their staff? We do not have all the answers, but working with our clients and their other professional staff, we really think we can find great solutions to generate revenue and other revenue generating opportunities. A couple of examples would be, conversion of old schools that are outdated into senior housing or workforce housing desperately needed, across the country. We've put solar panels on landfills. It's not rocket science to figure that out, but that opportunity to convert a brownfield landfill and lease the space for solar, we're bringing in millions of dollars over a 20-year life, for the community by coming up with ways to again generate revenue. I was just trying to see, today's demands are really housing, and certainly schools, depending upon where they are in the country. Florida, you've got people coming in from other states. You've got, migrants coming in from literally all over the world. So the demand for, new schools and housing, really ends up being two of the top requirements, for a government agency. So we look to be part of the team, as I said, and really look to have, create solutions for our clients.
To follow up on that housing comment, if I may, the state of Florida is very serious about improving the what they call live, work, play model, and they passed House Bill 102 in July of 2023, which gives the state authority over all the jurisdictions, all the municipality, county, city. It's an overlay that the state can require if services are concurrent, if they can supply all the utilities and all the emergency service and the schooling service, and regardless of the zoning, the state will intercede and allow them to build mixed use facility with 40% workforce housing, 60% market housing, and community retail within. So that's part of that.
Are there any common challenges that you notice government entities face when it comes to managing their own real estate portfolios?
I think that the challenges are, particularly in a government, municipality, a lot of the decision makers try to make decisions, through consensus, and that's certainly one way to do it. But sometimes trying to get to consensus often takes years.
Mm-hmm.
So without an expertise such as we provide, and other companies like us provide, how does a municipality understand the value of one alternative over another? A lot of these things can get quite emotional. Oh, we don't want to see the old church torn down. It's been there for years. It might not be historical. And, some of these decisions, take a long time. I'm not saying they're simple decisions, but at some point you need to base your decisions on hopefully facts and what's right for the community, going forward. Growth and opportunity kind of go hand in hand, and the municipalities often need, help to better understand what is the alternatives they should be considering, and then at the end of the day, making a decision on those alternatives that are presented.
So a part of your program emphasizes creating revenue streams for government entities. Can you provide examples of successful projects where you were able to find hidden value in underutilized assets?
Sure. I mean, I think I already commented on a couple of them. We were working for a town in Massachusetts, and they had a very nice 20-acre parcel right on the main road. The geotech, what was in the ground, was all ledge. They had no sewer or water in the street. And so they often had tried to figure out what's the best play. How could this be redeveloped? We happened to come along, and they mentioned this as one of their problem properties. And we came up with the idea of doing a solar farm So we didn't need solar, we didn't need sewer, we didn't need water. And we put that out for bid. We built our fee into the RFP, request for proposal, and we had 4 bidders. We selected the best bidder, and that particular project, a 17-acre solar farm, has been up and running for 6 years now, and the revenue is going to be $2.1 million in rent from the solar company for the town on something they've been scratching their heads about for years. You know, how can we try to create revenue out of this difficult property? We did work when I was at the Starbucks company for the U.S. Army Reserves in California. The BART transportation system coming out of San Francisco was going to be coming within a quarter of a mile of this Army Reserve base. And they had 80 acres that it was really underutilized. You usually don't want to use the word excess with the government because that they may lose it and not gain any revenue from it. Anyways, this 80 acres was studied, and after 2.5 years of consulting, it was put out to bid for developer, and the value was $126 million. That was benefited the U.S. Army Reserves. They didn't sell the land because that money would have gone into the general fund, but they took it was called a real property exchange. In exchange for the deed of the 80 acres, the Army Reserves gained $126 million in new construction for Army Reserve centers all over the state of California. And they put that money to good use, you know, helping train our troops and house our troops for reserve duty, you know, in this case, California. So there's lots of different ways to create revenue. Those are just but a few examples. We did a housing study for a town in Massachusetts, a 33,000 middle school that hadn't been used for 6 years. And the final design was 78 senior housing apartments, approximately 950 feet each. So it was interesting that particular classrooms were a perfect fit for the footprint of a senior housing apartment. So again, we need to dig into the government agency. We need to look at their real estate portfolio. And again, working with the agency, try to come up with solutions that are correct for the agency that generates revenue at the end of the day and solves a problem, in this case, you know, senior housing. So we have a lot of fun with what we do, and we really look forward to, you know, working with our different clients.
Nice. That's so interesting. This topic you explain it very well. You guys are very good at explaining this. So, when considering properties like high exposure corners or signalized corners, how do you determine the optimal redevelopment strategy that maximizes the potential value of the land?
I'm going to let Jeffrey run with that one.
Okay.
Okay. Well, the first thing that you look at is the zoning, and then the second thing you look at is who's not there. When it comes to corners, it depends on the decade who the potential buyer will be. In the 60s and 70s and living to the 80s, they were all gas stations. That was the time when the tank and piping systems were very rudimentary. If they had a leak, they didn't really know it until you know, it was well underway. I think it was 2009 they changed the legislation where all the piping had to be vacuum piping, and all of the tanks had to be enclosed in fiberglass. However, that still left us with almost every corner in the U.S. Contaminated, or every other corner. So that was a problem. The pharmacies were the next buyer, and you would find and they don't mind being adjacent to each other, because they have slightly different models. So you'd find a CVS or an Eckerd, which was bought out, and many of those facilities lie vacant while the lease was still being paid because it was corporately backed. I believe it was Walgreens that bought Eckerd out, if not CVS. Do you recall, Duncan, who made that purchase?
I believe it was Walgreens.
Yeah, and so Walgreens was the buyer of the time, and banks then replaced the pharmacies, and so and all of these entities were very cognizant of maximizing the traffic flow. You know, whether it was on the near side of the signalized intersection or the far side. You know, it would make exiting difficult if it was, you know, on one or the other, or whether was it on the going to work side, the heavier traffic flow in the morning, going to employment centers or going away from employment centers. But corners are very valuable. You know, corners that I sold for BP Amico, they were sold site restricted, and they're wonderful corners on wonderful thoroughfares, but they were not going to sell to a competitive user. So that you see a lot of cell phone companies and check cashing companies, people that really are drawing people to the high exposure. I sold a corner. It was raw land, but the first Wawa that was built in the state of Florida, in Apopka, Florida. I had a 4-acre corner. I hired a civil engineer to do a parcel split, subdivided it into two 2-acre parcels, and a high-end car wash went in on one, and Wawa went in on the other, and with a common ingress egress required by the state. So and common retention. So it really is a site by site basis, and who's not there. That's, you know, in retail, and corners will almost always be retail unless they're mixed use. You know, you can put retail below and offices above. Depends on the density of the area. So that it's always a good challenge to have.
Nice. So, those are all the questions I have for you both today. How can people get in contact with KW Government Services?
Well, we have a website, KW Government Services. I think it's kwgs.com. Is that right, or is it KW
The
Government?
website is kwgovernment.com.
KW Government.
Government.com. And, you know, obviously locally, it'll take you directly to Jeffrey. We also have a contract with the city of Tallahassee right now, so we're already active in Florida. Yeah, we look forward to any inquiries or even questions, just to kind of get the ball rolling from any of your listeners.
And so, to be sure, you know that I believe, Duncan, the division has a project going on in Alaska right now.
We do. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that one is pretty interesting, the way that seems to be unfolding. We had our National Public-Private Partnership Director Bryce Sherborne, who's based in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. He flew up to Anchorage about 8 weeks ago and was been working the project there. There's a very not well located retail mall, and with the economy the way it was since COVID, this particular mall is down to about 15% occupancy. So it's an underutilized resource asset. It is not a government owned asset. But in this case, to be able to bring that back and try to figure out how to use it, it could certainly benefit the community from the taxes that it might be paying and or how it might be utilized for nonprofits. Our group up there had an idea to get control of this mall and have it be a location where all nonprofits in the Anchorage area could all be located in one place. As we all know, nonprofits in our general region or municipality are always in a lot of cases not the best facilities, in the world. They don't have a lot of money in a lot of cases. Some are better funded than others. But the point is, if you could locate centrally all nonprofits for a particular municipality or region in one location, particularly where there's plenty of parking, it would make a one-stop support center for nonprofits. So this one particular idea coming out of Anchorage, Alaska, just in February, we're going to try to run with this and utilize this, with our associates like Jeffrey around the country to see if we can coordinate for nonprofits in each region.
That's amazing.
So it could be a win-win, obviously. And then depending upon how large the particular underutilized retail mall might be, there may be even opportunities for affordable housing, in part of the space, because you've already got the parking, you've already got the sewage, you've already got the water, and have other amenities in the area, some retail stores. And so there may not be a need for, cars or as many cars as people have if you can consolidate, a number of these requirements in one location.
Yeah, that sounds like a great project.
So that's just, something that's just really, we started to talk about in the last 90 days. But between the need for housing and tying in the need for nonprofits to have, for the better word, the better use of a word, have a home in a region, it could be something that might be able to really take off, TBD, we'll see how it goes.
Yes. And I have a website which you can link me to has my phone number and my email. It's jbkwc.com, and I would be glad to answer any questions. And if I don't have that answer, I know Duncan or one of our team members in government services will.
Awesome. Thank you both for joining me today.
Well, great. Look forward to any feedback you have or your listeners might have, and maybe we can do an update in a few months.
Yeah, 100%.